Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Cassie and I. And to my mind, what's a really exciting week. There's so much happening. And the aspects are just like, oh my goodness, the astrology. So we're probably not going to look beyond just a few days of the astrology, part of what we looked at last week, but of things have blown up. And so we're both wearing our Petrify the Patriarchy t-shirts. And so it's one of those kind of weeks. So anyway, I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology. I am publishing a new book series in astrology, which is going gangbusters already. And I haven't, it's being officially published on August the 12th, but I've got pre-sale copies available, signed pre-sale copies from me available from sacredthreadsimprint.com. I've got to sign and mail them all now, but that's okay. I've got 140 to do over the weekend. So, but anyway, and she's active today this week as well. When we look at the aspects, you'll hear that. But otherwise, I offer consultations. I have a membership. I write every day on Substack, all as Cosmic Owl Astrology. And I have two memberships. The Nest is kind of my more intensive personal membership that's more about people learning the astrology. And I have a Spiral Weave membership through Substack that has one Ask Me Almost Anything call a month and other little goodies. Kathy.
Hey, I'm Kathy Biehl. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. I have a talk there currently about Saturn and Neptune throughout history. $20. You'll find many of the recurring themes fascinating. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl. I also have a monthly Ask Me Almost Anything next week. Next Thursday is the event. And I have a Facebook page, Empowerment Unlimited, and a group, the Astro Insight Lounge, where I have a pinned thread tracking all of the news that fits the current Mercury retrograde. And I started it off with something like 7 events, and anybody can add to it in the comments. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. I also host a show on Om Times Media called Celestial Compass. And next Monday, the 21st, my guest is Louise, and I'm going to talk to her about her book on series. So there you go.
Awesome. So don't miss that. And I'll be sharing about that too everywhere. Okay, so Kathy's got the news. I've got the aspects as usual. Then we've got the charts, and we've got a couple of interesting extra observations about this week. And the chart aspects are astounding, to be honest. But anyway, the news.
So to start again, my purpose in compiling news stories is not to be a news source. It is to show how our forecasts have been playing out. And recently we had Saturn and Neptune, structure and boundlessness in the sign of Aries, which is self-starting and very, very fiery and passionate and self-focused, in an opportunity aspect with change agent Uranus in Gemini, shaking things up. We also have a pileup of retrogrades happening right now, most of them in fire. Saturn and Neptune are retrograde at the beginning of Aries. Mercury has just stationed retrograde on a critical point, 15 Leo. Eris, the goddess of discord, Louise calls her the table tipper, is stationing retrograde toward the end of
You're
Aries.
giving all my aspects away
No, just so you know that we've got this pile up of fire, and you're going to
Yes, we
see
do.
that. You're going to see that throughout all this. We also have stuff from um, the Capricorn full moon from last week. Now, so my point in going through all that is everything that's happening now has a much, much longer story to it than the moment because of these retrograde stations. Okay, so let's start with lots of flooding. Flooding continues. Flooding in New York State. flooding in New York City, in the subways, flooding in Pennsylvania, more flooding in central Texas. Add to this wildfires. There were more than 100 fires in Arizona, Las Vegas, Northern California, New Mexico, Alaska, more than 350 in Western Canada, the Grand Canyon North Rim. I think a hotel burned down there, and
Oh,
this
the old lodge, it's
old
historic.
lodge.
Yeah. Hmm.
And the main stage at the Tomorrowland Music Festival burned to the ground. Now that's some symbol for you right there. Ongoing cuts. The State Department cut thousands of jobs and it gutted its trafficking enforcement division. Put a
Oh,
pin in that. SCOTUS lifted an injunction that was stopping the Department of Education staff cuts, presumably while litigation continues over whether the executive order was legal. Usual method, I'll just throw in here, the usual method with this kind of review is you protect the status quo. And if the person asking for the injunction has a substantial likelihood of winning on the merits, i.e., this is probably an illegal executive order, you keep the injunction in place. But we have different rules now. Okay, end of
yeah.
soapbox. Pam Bondi fired her ethics advisor, who'd been in the job for 20 years. The Senate cut funding for NPR and PBS. Okay, a few more things. Trump demanded that Texas redistrict to give 5 seats to the GOP. And at the same time, the Department of Justice sent a letter to Texas saying, oh, by the way, you have 5 seats that seem to have racially improper districting. And guess what the skin color is of the 5 representatives? Also party affiliation. So in
Mm.
Texas, the legislature doesn't meet every year. It meets every 2 years, unless the governor calls a special session. So Abbott has called a special session with 4 or 5 items on it. Abortion restrictions is one.
Mhm.
Um, not to address the flooding, not to address what happened with emergencies, communications, but to redistrict. And there is precedent. It happened in 79. I remember this. There's precedent for Dems walking out and not giving them the quorum. And there's some talk that this is what will happen. So I encourage you to uh, put in a search box, Killer Bees, Texas, and you'll see what happened the last time
Mm.
legislators did that. Okay. A federal court ordered ICE to halt immigration raids in Southern California. A federal court ruled that Trump's firing of the FTC commissioner, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, is illegal. So they reinstated her. In slightly different news, Israel declared war on Syria, which conveniently put Netanyahu's bribery trial on hold. When Uranus moved into Gemini, it's now approaching Musk's Saturn, which is at 2 degrees Gemini. France is investigating him for election data manipulation. Put a pin in that. Uh, as CBS canceled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert a couple of
Mhm.
days after he called Paramount's $16 million settlement with Trump a big fat bribe. The cancellation is as of May 2026, so watch what happens in the next 10 months. The claim is financial reasons. There are now senators calling for this to be investigated as politically motivated. So 2 more big
Mhm.
things. Well, actually 3 more things involving you know who. Um, the Capricorn full moon resurfacing the whole question about the incident in Butler, Pennsylvania in July of 2024. So 1 year after the Capricorn full moon of 2024, the widow of the man who was killed by the sniper's
Mm.
bullets went on Fox demanding answers. And she got a call from the White House the next day, and suddenly it's left the news cycle. You can read what you want into
Mm.
that. But now a video is circulating on social media that was taken from the front row that shows Secret Service people very slowly and deliberately moving photographers into place right before the shooting took place. Read into that what you want. Okay, 2 more things. The Epstein files. This is a big one. We'll talk about this a lot. So,
Oh yeah.
the head and the assistant head of the FBI threatened to resign after Bondi said nothing to see here. After in February, she had said she had the files on her desk. The assistant head of the FBI went out on administrative leave. I believe he's back. The House Rules Committee killed a motion to require the release of the files. This is still being fought back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The GOP killed a call for Ghislaine Maxwell to testify before Congress. She has an appeal before the Supreme Court. I do not know the grounds for the appeal. It's really hard to get to the Supreme Court to, they have very limited jurisdiction. We'll see if they dodge that. Musk screamed that Trump's in the files, and the next day his Grok AI got a huge Pentagon contract, but he's still making noise about it, so it didn't completely shut him up. Bondi fired the prosecutor from Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and Sean Combs prosecutions. Maureen Comey, who just happens to be Jim Comey's daughter, fired without warning. The Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, who met with Thiel and Vance and who knows who else a few weeks ago. Wall Street Journal dropped a hand-drawn greeting card from Trump to Epstein with a drawing of a naked girl with breasts and his signature for where his pubic hair should have been, and comments that are incredibly cryptic about secrets and being enigmas. And then it's not going away, so Trump has now told Bondi to release grand jury testimony, but not documents. And again, the normal scheme of things here is that only the AG has anything to do with this. There's usually a firewall, usually between the president and the AG. Final matter. We have been saying for months that there are stresses on the ruler of the planet that rules Trump's house of health. It's a slightly different planet depending on the house system you use, but it works for both of them, and they both indicate cardiovascular problems. And suddenly this diagnosis is released. Why release it when they're always saying how healthy he is? He's been diagnosed with a minor vein issue called chronic venous insufficiency. My suspicion is it's not minor, and I remind you that what I said at the outset, everything that I have just mentioned isn't going away. It's like little sparks that are going to spread and spread and spread and spread like wildfire.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm reminded of a presentation I listened to earlier this year before I go through the aspects, that an astrologer called Divine Harmony called this year the baptism of fire and water. And I'm like, oh my God, what a perfect wording for it. And she turned out to be correct, because this is happening everywhere. Floods, fire, everything. So literally and metaphorically. So the aspects for the week, though, I'm actually starting yesterday. So on the 17th, July the 17th, we actually had a last quarter moon with the sun in Cancer and the moon in Aries. And the sun squared Eris. And Eris is the disruptor. She's also good trouble. I was actually at a good trouble protest last night here in Salt Lake City in memory of John Lewis. And so, this energy of this good trouble is really coming in with Eris. And as Kathy mentioned, Eris is about to station retrograde too. So that made that even more powerful. And then earlier today on the 18th, Mercury stationed retrograde and at a world point 15 Leo, more fire. So we've got Eris in Aries, fire, Sun in Cancer, water. And then we've got this turning point of Mercury stationing retrograde, adding to all the other retrogrades that we have had turn recently. And but Mercury is a more immediate, and Mercury is the news and things coming to light, old letters and things like that, right? So
Files, documents, pieces of paper, drawings.
Exactly. All those kind of things. Then tomorrow on the 19th, the sun still in water sign Cancer squares Chiron in fire sign Aries at 27 degrees, which happens to also be the degree of the Sagittarius galactic center, by the way, which has been activated a gazillion times over the last couple of years. And so that is also activating both wounds and the key to healing. So we'll kind of look at all of this a little bit, but there's more fire and water there. And so then on the 20th, we have an earthy aspect, but it's also got water in it because Mars, which is the guide for Aries and the traditional guide for Scorpio, is conjunct the South Node at 19 degrees Virgo, and Virgo is Mercury, one of Mercury's signs. So, and that, of course, means that it's also opposing Pisces, water. And Mars conjunct the South Node is always quite a big deal. There's another big turning point, okay, and that's in a mutable sign, so change. There's a lot of mutable coming up. But at the same time, Mercury just stationed retrograde in Leo, still at that 15 degrees, the world point in fire sign, trines Ceres, read my book, in fire sign Aries. And so Mercury and Ceres have, they're both boundary crosses, by the way. And I did a whole video on it on my YouTube just about that trine because it happens 3 times. And Mercury and Ceres will station direct and retrograde on the same day, August the 11th. So they're really speaking to each other now. So that's just adding to more fire. And on the same days, oh no, on the 21st, Venus in Gemini will square the nodes, and Mars has just been conjunct the South Node, but she will also make an air grand trine to Pallas Athena, which is quite prominent in the charts we're going to look at. And this is female justice all coming around, and another turning point. So and then on the 22nd, Eris stations retrograde in Aries, fire sign Aries at 25 degrees. And I've really found good trouble Eris and table Turner Eris to be very powerful in a lot of charts. And these stations points of these slower moving planets are especially potent. Then on the same day, though, the sun enters Leo, adding to more fire. Oh, and we'll talk about the energy of fire in general a lot. But, if you think about the energy of fire, it's very creative, but it also burns things down to the ground, right? So, and then on the 23rd, Venus has just squared the nodes, but now she squares Mars, which is the guide for Aries. And that is, and she also squares Nessus in Pisces, Centaur Nessus, generational abuses of power. And this makes a very powerful and very tight mutable T square in air and earth and water. And I think that's going to bring a lot more to light as well, especially because it's of its proximity to the nodes. And on that same day, the 23rd, the Leo sun will sextile Uranus in Gemini. Uranus has just moved into Gemini. I think it's the only one of the few planets that's not yet retrograde, right? So I'm losing track. Yes,
it's not
but
retrograde yet.
No, but that's at 0 Leo Gemini. So fire and air. What does air do to fire? Then the very next day we have a Leo new moon, and also it's trine to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. But fire, fire, fire. It's also opposing Pluto in Aquarius, fire and air. But also, thanks to Maurice Fernandez, we now know that asteroid Epstein is today, as we record, at 1 degree 43 minutes of Aries, right in the mix with that Saturn Neptune. You cannot make this stuff up. But I'm going to say as well there, we've also got Black Moon Lilith at the very beginning degrees of Sagittarius. She's about 1 degree, 2 degrees. She's joining all this mix at those early degrees too. So it's just fire and air, but a lot of water as well, washing things away and bringing the floods because Saturn and Neptune are heading back into Pisces. So anything extra you want to say about all of that?
Right, to digest this for people. Lots of energy. This is not a time when you can just pull the covers over your head or when anyone can. And this is a genie is out of the bottle, can't put it back
Mm-hmm.
in stretch of time with a vengeance. And the genie might be Jeannie, Jeanie, and she's quite a trickster. So women's issues, people standing up, women against men, uh, women coming up and speaking to power and saying, "Fix it, fix it, fix it." Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the takeaway, if this is all too much and it's blowing your mind, just take away that where things that are popping up now are only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And remember
Mm.
that with Watergate, what was worse than the illegal break-in was the cover up. So the
Mm-hmm.
effects to stifle this, the effects to stifle anything, to downplay anything, gonna blow up, gonna blow up, gonna blow up. Watch
Oh,
what happens to
yes.
Paramount and
Yeah.
CBS for claiming that there's no. I will not be surprised if something doesn't come forward showing that there was an actual demand to fire Colbert. I will not be surprised if that shows up. And another funny little thing is that Coldplay, the band Coldplay,
Mm.
inadvertently outed an extramarital affair because the
Oh,
CEO of a company called Astronomer was caught on the Jumbotron with his
yes.
arms around a woman, not his wife, who was the head of HR. Reputedly, the guy that bought them the tickets has been fired, and there's this huge noise. Anyway, some more is going to come from that. So
Oh,
even
yeah.
seemingly stupid little things. And if you want to follow this, two things. First off, as I said, I've got this running list of Mercury retrograde in the news in the Astro Insight Lounge. It's also at my Patreon. And secondly, our colleague Celeste Brooks has on her blog at Astrology by Celeste a wonderful piece about Mercury retrograde and the rich and famous. I mean, there are
Oh,
other things that have happened I didn't know about, like the Beyonce's choreographer's car was broken into and a hard drive with her new music was stolen. Mercury's a thief. So just, there are many, many ways that you can get access to analyses that show this is how all this stuff is playing out. And my
yeah.
post in the Astro Insight Lounge and on my Patreon actually lists keywords for Mercury
Mm.
and for Leo to
Mm.
help those of you who are still like getting your feet wet with this, help you focus on what's happening and go, whoa, there's another example. There's another example.
Oh,
There's another example.
there's so many examples. It's kind of off the charts. And I had a thought there I wanted to share and I can't
Oh, I'm so
remember.
sorry.
No, 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 no. It came at the end and it's already gone. It'll come back. So, it'll come back if it's important. But oh, I did want to mention one other aspect that is fairly minor, but it's just emblematic of where things are coming up. So in March and April, Venus and Mercury were retrograde at the same time. Venus for a bit longer, Mercury while Venus was retrograde at almost exactly the same degrees, going from Aries back into Pisces, fire back into water. It was between eclipses. And this morning, Mercury's first aspect after stationing retrograde was to Venus in Gemini, which is Mercury's sign. Just little aspects like that, even, are going to kind of revisit things that may have been seeded in coming to light during those last retrogrades of or the last retrograde of Mercury and Venus's retrograde, which only does every 19 months. It's everything is like speaking to each other. It's kind of crazy at the moment.
So, more to the story for a lot that happened in March.
Yes, definitely. Mostly March, I will say. The actual middle point was about the third week in March of all of that. So, anyway, things are coming to light. I know what I wanted to say. We are going to be looking at a couple of charts today, and we're going to look at Jeffrey Epstein's chart. And I do want to say that charts do live on after people's deaths. Okay, so it's if you're new to astrology, you might go, well, he's not here anymore. But if those charts are activated, and there's something coming up about them from the past, they work. So which chart are we going to look at first, do you think?
I don't know. What do you feel like?
Oh, I think let's look at Epstein on his own first. Then we'll look at the connections with Trump, if that's okay. And we'll take it from there. So we don't not have a time for Epstein. So I put the sun on the ascendant. The first thing that leaps out at me is that he was born with his sun at 0 Aquarius, and that would not matter what time he was born, because 0 Aquarius is a really hot degree and has been, and I've left this on for a reason. You'll see that when we look at Trump and things. But yeah, I did a whole video on that with a client of mine we called the video Fools and Lovers. If anybody wants to watch it, you can go and search in my YouTube. But the point is, we've had some major conjunctions at 0 Aquarius, and Pluto is headed back to Pluto. It's at 0 Aquarius right now, and we've got all these aspects happening in the first couple of degrees of a lot of signs. So the new moon is pretty much opposing his sun. So as it's a very powerful degree, it's been activated over and over again, which when I see a lot of big aspects happening at a degree, particularly a 0 degree, new things are emerging, change. Yeah, so that's the first thing. I would also say it's sextile to Pallas Athena in Aries at the 0 point, the world point 0 Aries, which is also being activated hugely right now. Wise strategy, justice, fighting for justice for women, all kinds of things like that. Petrify the patriarchy, let's say. There's a lot I could say, but I want Kathy to bring in her insights as well.
There are two things about this chart I want to point
Mm-hmm.
out. One is, look how tight the conjunction is between Mars and Venus at 16 Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there are many ways you can look at this. Is this a man exerting dominion over women as victims? That is possible. There could be could have been a romanticizing of what the role of love is or whatever, but definitely masculine influence over women as victims really does. That's a formula for it. The second thing I want to point out at the top of the chart in the ninth house of the solar chart, you see that Neptune and Saturn are close together. That's not a tight conjunction. However, we're going to count it. He was
Mm.
born during a time when Saturn and Neptune were kind of going back and forth, tight conjunction, wider, tight conjunction, wider. So he was born basically under an ongoing Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which we are now in the midst of. And again, invoking Celeste Brooks, she talked about the architecture of deceit being
Mm.
one way to look at, and we're dismantling or we're eroding the architecture of deceit with Saturn and Neptune. Also, the very day he was born was the day Dwight Eisenhower was inaugurated. I don't know what that means. I just put that out there as a very interesting
Interesting fact. Yeah.
fact.
And I want to add a couple of other things. We don't know a time he was born, but I'm going to say he's very certain to have an Aries moon, because it's pretty much in the middle degrees if we set it at noon. So even though we don't know the degree of his Aries moon, we've talked through the aspects and looked at charts. There's so much been happening in Aries. His moon is definitely activated in some way. We just don't know which aspects exactly. But also, Uranus has just moved into Gemini and he has Ceres in Gemini. And I mentioned that Ceres and Mercury, this is Mercury's sign, have things very much in common. They kind of work together in many ways. Radical change, think news, coming to light, about needs met and unmet. Also, his Uranus natally is very close to the sun of the USA. So, his chart is kind of, there's lots of things we could talk about. He's also got a south node in Leo, and Mercury is stationed retrograde at 15 Leo. Not on his south node, but it's going to go over it
Go over it.
3 times. It's gone over once, it's going to go back and over again. So and you'll see that that's kind of important when we look at chart connections. So,
So, a couple of things.
mm.
Jupiter is going to go over his Uranus in mid-August.
Oh yes,
So
that too.
that'll bring something out. But the other thing I want to point out is you mentioned his moon being somewhere in Aries. So at noon it was at 11. So it
Mm-hmm.
was from early-ish degree, like middle Aries somewhere. And you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned March and things coming back from.
Yes.
Well, there was a solar eclipse in that part of the sky, setting something forward at the end of March.
Mm-hmm. and
So this
and
is a playing out of that.
and if this is anywhere near his exact degree, Venus station retrograde at 10 degrees Aries and Mercury at 9 Aries. So 2 retrogrades and the eclipse. Wow, it's just amazing. I also forgot to mention we've got that Venus Jupiter conjunction with fixed star Sirius happening on August the 12th at 14 degrees Cancer. So, um, his chart is just being lit up and activated by the transits. But yes, natally, isn't that interesting? The Venus and Mars, how close it is. I know it's like, and in
Mhm.
Pisces. And if we look back a little bit as this has been emerging, that period back in March, we did have that Centaur Nessus around that degree of Pisces, the one that reveals abuses of power and things like that. So things are coming back to roost as they do.
So do you want to put his progress chart over this, or
Sure, yeah, yeah.
because there's some interesting things
Mm-hmm.
going on with that.
Yeah,
Um,
hang on a second. I've just got to get the progress chart around the outside. Yeah, I'll let you go first with that one. So with progressions, by the way, everybody, we usually only look at either very tight aspects or the faster moving planets change signs quickly because the planets all move about a day for a year with secondary progressions.
so
Mars
what
on
I would,
his Jupiter.
oh no,
Sorry.
yeah, Mars on his Jupiter, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at his excesses, and also there is information that the White House is sitting on a tremendous amount of information about monetary transfers involving him. So that would speak to the
Mm,
money. I would also notice that we've got uh the sun, his progressed sun at 13 Aries is in the vicinity of his natal moon. So
mm-hmm,
something coming up with that would very much be part of it. And uh, not a coincidence that his progressed moon in the public house, the most public
mm.
part of the chart, the 10th house, is in uh, Scorpio, the sign of sex and crimes and secrets and huge money.
I would also say Venus, because clearly he hurt lots of young women. He was convicted of that. There's no question there. His progressed Venus is retrograde at 28 Aries, and Chiron is now at 27 Aries. Chiron, the wound, how he wounded, or things like that, are being kind of revisited, let's say. And
And we've got
Pallas
Pallas
Athena.
at the anaretic degree. It was within like within about 6 months of moving into Taurus, so something big is coming.
Yeah, Yeah. And I haven't looked when his progressed Venus went retrograde, but the fact it's retrograde and it wasn't when he was born is, again, revisiting things.
And in fire, it's not
Yes.
going away.
Oh, it is not going away. No, no.
Okay, that's all I
Mm.
have about that.
Well, I'm just going to say, thinking back to the aspects, we've got that T square with Nessus at 21 degrees Pisces and Venus at 21 Gemini and Mars at 21 Virgo coming up, and his progressed Mercury. News in water sign, clouds clearing is being activated by all of that. And this is actually the Mars South Node conjunction and opposing the North Node is exactly on his progressed Mercury.
Again, information,
Yeah,
lots of
amazing.
information.
Amazing aspects, just aspecting both his natal chart and his progressed chart. So, anything else before we kind of bring other
His
things in?
progressed sun is squaring the US sun. I don't know if that means something.
Oh, I
Uh,
think it does. I think it does, especially
yeah,
because it's applying to um, a square with his Uranus. So, I think things will keep coming out. I think it's,
I agree.
yeah. hmm Yeah. Well,
Okay,
yeah. So, do we want to put him with um, the the
with his best
current
friend.
resident, his best friend, who said he's a great guy? I'm actually going to swap them around and put the apparent president um, in the middle. So this is the chart of Donald Trump. And I said I left this midpoint in. This is what's called a midpoint. And I have to thank Frederick Woodruff for alerting me to that. The midpoint of Donald's Mercury and Saturn has Jeffrey's Uranus sitting on it pretty much. So
That's very
mid,
inconvenient for him.
isn't it? Because Uranus can be kind of breakouts, kind of like radical change kind of things. So, but look where his south node is too, Jeffrey's right on 12th house, Pluto. 12th house, hidden things, secrets, Pluto excavating. It's almost like that, and both related to the past in many ways, so it's past history, the secrets, the lies, the dirty laundry kind of thing.
And Mercury retrograde is going to go over that. We've got 2 more passes. That's important to keep in mind.
And as I mentioned earlier, it's also aspecting Ceres in Aries, that fire sign, more fire. It's just everything's kind of coming home to roost, if you
Notice
like.
that Epstein's Neptune in Trump's second house of money, resources,
Mm-hmm.
in Libra is exactly square Trump's 11th house Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
So
Let
they
me draw
fueled
the
each
line.
other. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
I mean,
fueled
it's
each other.
it's it's exact by just 4 minutes. So that's
But look
like,
how close that is. Yeah, very tight.
yeah. And of course, if you go and listen to Kathy's amazing presentation on Saturn Neptune conjunctions, if there's a Saturn Neptune tie in originally, any Saturn Neptune aspect like that will
Mm.
also be prominent. So lots of things going on there. I also do know we can look at the transits in a minute, but that T square with Nessus and the abuses of power and the Mars South Node conjunction and Venus in Gemini is, we've mentioned it before, but I'll add it in again, is aspecting Donald Trump's natal eclipse energy that he was born on. So, um, or
There's one other
more
thing I
more
want to
news,
mention here.
more news. Yes, go on.
If you look at Trump's seventh house, Epstein's Mars at 16 Pisces, Venus at 16 Pisces in the house of palsy wowsy, and it's
Hmm.
squaring Trump's Uranus, which can be doing things differently, deviance, doing things that are shocking,
Hmm.
unconventional, underage certainly fits that.
Oh, and Epstein's North Node is on Donald's series in Aquarius, which I kind of relate to, him bringing things forth. Let's say, yeah,
Mhm.
lots it could say about that, but all of these things you could. This is all quite astounding, and Epstein's Mercury is, not exactly opposing his Saturn, but it's close, and
It's pretty
um,
close.
and and it's in Capricorn, which is Saturn's sign. So, and we all know this is a bit of an Achilles heel, this Saturn Venus conjunction for uh, Donald Trump already. So
Fifth house is the sign of risk taking and gambling,
it is,
among other things.
yes, and this is kind of groups and a bigger audience, if you like. So it could be all
Mm.
those women for a start in the sign of Cancer for it, definitely.
How would you like to add
Mm.
the aspects? Do you want to do a tri-wheel, or is that going to be too
Yes,
hard to
let's.
read?
No, I think we do. I can draw my lines on, so and then we can kind of look at them separately as well if necessary. But there's just I'll take out that midpoint because I made my point about that. So that Uranus is on there. So although Jupiter's going to come up to that midpoint, maybe I leave it on. And what date would you like me to move it to
I
for
don't know.
the
What do you
aspects? There's
think?
so much happening. Oh God. Um,
I don't know. Last
let's
night at 5 o'clock when that story broke, or do you want to take it to the new moon, or
let's start last night at 5 o'clock. So
I
it
was,
was
and that's,
5 o'clock Eastern, was it? So
yeah, roughly. It's
yeah,
I can see
yeah.
when I was messaging people like a maniac, like,
Well,
look at this.
it would be 5 p.m. because I left the house then to go to the Good Trouble, and it was coming out as I was driving. I was like, why does this always happen when I can't type? But anyway, so
Okay, hold on.
this was when the news came out last night. So
When it actually, it might have been later when there was news that the Wall Street Journal had something around 5, and then
yeah,
later it became clear what it was. So that's close enough.
it is. Well, instantly look at Uranus, newly in Gemini,
Mhm.
almost
Trining.
exactly trine Epstein's sun in Trump's sixth house, which is, in mundane astrology is not said to be one of the most fortunate houses, and it's also very mercurial house and kind of about the details and the filing system. So news breaking,
With it
yeah,
being in the 10th, with Uranus being in the 10th house, it was very public and it disrupted daily
hmm
life.
it
Disrupted
did.
daily life very
It did
much.
for sure. And Mercury was at 15 stationed, of course, and really in a sextile aspect with Trump's Uranus and Venus coming up to cross Trump's Uranus too very soon. Like
Deals, money deals,
deals,
agreements with
money
women.
deals, women, all of that. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, let's look at at Saturn and Neptune in Trump's eighth house of investments, other people's money. It's a house of criminality and secrets, and it's on Epstein's palace,
Palisadine.
and it's
Yeah.
also it's sextiling, which is opening a window
Hmm.
that transiting Uranus up there and is the most public part of his chart.
And if,
And
sorry,
and
yeah.
also, I'm so sorry, Saturn and Neptune having both stationed
Hmm.
retrograde
Yeah.
isn't going away.
Away. And I just wanted to remind everybody that as of this morning, I've not looked at the transits exactly, but asteroid Epstein was at 1 degree 43
Right.
Aries with Saturn and the asteroid coming to each other. And that can sometimes be like a slap in the face reality check, kind of a stop to things, a bit of a ouch kind of thing. Saturn can be hard lessons at times, right? So, mhm. And then of course Neptune and asteroid Epstein will also be approaching each other. So I'm going to keep trying to track that a little bit over the next week or so.
So add to this that Pluto in Aquarius in Trump's sixth is exactly sextile that Neptune. So it's communicating with Saturn and Neptune and asteroid Epstein. Epstein.
Yeah.
It's a
And Pluto.
window, and
Mhm.
it's making a trine to that Pluto. So essentially, would you consider that a mini grand trine?
Yes, I would. And this is the mini grand trine that's going to be active for the next few months. It kind of breaks apart temporarily when Uranus moves back into Taurus for a short while, at the end of the year. But next summer it's kind of most exact again. But these are such big planets. I'm going to use a phrase I heard on a podcast. Who was it? I think it was Frederick Woodruff again. If anybody's aware of Richard Tarnas, he wrote the big book Cosmos and Psyche. He gives a 10-degree orb for these big hitter planets,
Mm.
especially in collective history. So you can see Uranus, they're all kind of like so close together, really. So, they're, I think faster moving planets will activate these planets more exactly. But really, this is all happening everything everywhere all at once, to quote the movie.
And let's add in the
Yeah.
fact that Pluto in Aquarius has a lot to do with the plutocrats, the oligarchs, the
Yes.
crats, the broligarchs. Maybe some of them are capitalizing on this
Oh yeah.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the role of technology and social media with Uranus in Gemini. So, I mean, Trump's been conducting diplomacy on Truth Social, and he's making all these comments online, fighting all of this, and it will continue. It's going to continue to be all over the internet,
Oh
uh, whatever is playing out with this. And there's one more piece that's going to lock into place that Louise mentioned in her lineup of what's going on, and that is the Leo new moon
yeah,
on
let me.
the 24th is going to ignite all of this. I personally am seeing the Leo new moon as our moment to personally retool ourselves, our intentions, our goals, our creativity to match the changing circumstances. But
Mm-hmm.
it just ignites everything. See it, it's there in Trump's 12th house of
Oh.
institutions, hospitals, hidden matters,
Mm-hmm.
crimes, his own psyche. So something, and it's trining Saturn. So it's opposite Pluto. It's trining Saturn and Neptune and the asteroid Epstein, which is nothing is in the way. The fire's just
Mm.
going, 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 and it's getting fueled by the sparks from Uranus. Like, oh, more things, more disruption, more crazy things,
Mm.
tilt,
Oh,
tilt, tilt, tilt. And then Pluto at the
sextile
bottom of
to
like
and yeah, and sextile to Uranus and Epstein series. This new moon is a whopper. I'm telling you, people. Yeah.
huge power games. And what you
Mm-hmm.
see on the surface collectively may not be at all what is going on because the sun is
Mm.
in Trump's 12th.
Can I
So
add some extra
please,
aspects? Oh my
please do.
God. Venus. I mentioned that Venus and Nessus and this Mars South Node conjunction are going to make a 21-degree exact T square, but Venus is right on Donald's son on that day. And, this is kind of like women again, but it's a Mercury sign. Mercury is almost right on Epstein's south node on their new
Something
moon
coming
too.
out from the past.
Oh goodness, I heard a rumor that there was another article in the works on from the Wall Street Journal. I think that was on the Bulwark podcast.
Don't you think
Um,
that's just going to be drip, 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 drip,
oh
drip?
yeah, I do. Yeah, and and I think it involves more than him, but he's our president. But yeah, so this is just huge. The fact that this new moon has Venus as well on his sun, because it's a Leo new moon, which is ruled by the sun. So, and Leo is kind of the king as well. So, and he
So
wants to be
would you
king.
would you highlight Eris at 25, Aries
Mm,
in his eighth house of
oh, yeah.
other people's money, crimes, investments? It's exactly squaring Venus in
Yeah.
his chart.
And as I mentioned, Eris is kind of good trouble, or, turning tables, and another very feminist kind of energy, for want of a better word, as well. So, yeah.
Somebody who was a partner may turn on him
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah. And
Very.
well, there is another rumor. I don't know if we even want to mention that, about a certain meeting. Did you want to mention that? Because you
Oh,
told me.
I did mention it in,
Mm. Oh,
conduct the
you did,
dominant
yes. But
want.
I want
Yeah.
let's remind people.
Yeah. Yeah. Peter Thiel and JD Vance and supposedly Murdoch and other people met a couple of weeks ago and no one said what about. And Murdoch owns the Wall Street Journal. So
Yep.
there may be a method to these disclosures and the fact that they're coming through that particular publication.
Yeah. Yeah. But I always knew this. So back to my centaurs, which I love. I always knew. And Nessus has I think it's a 91-year orb. But anyway, I always knew that going through his seventh house was going to be a real problem for him. And that relates back to that Venus and Mercury retrograde in the eclipses back in March as well, because Nessus was connected to those. So, all this was kind of stewing from that period, I think, and coming to roost. So
It's making a grand cross to his sun moon,
it
nodal
is.
opposition.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so if you look at this, Nessus is opposite Mars, which is near the south node, and they're all squaring his sun and south node, north node, and moon and
Hmm.
south node. So essentially what that's doing, it's pulling him in many directions. Since it's mutable, it goes this way, it goes that way, but he can't get loose. To me,
Oh,
this is a live butterfly on the specimen table, wiggling, 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 not able to get away. And
and
many people,
it's why he keeps changing his story. I think, one
yes.
day it's like they did the files don't exist, then the Democrats have made them up, and yeah,
And this is happening not just for this story, but just to him in
yeah.
general. And many people see a grand cross like this as a life turning point. And this
Hmm.
may be for him.
And I'd say it's also adding to it changing some people's perceptions of him,
Yes.
how they see him, and realizing, that things, a lot of things. So yeah,
Yep.
especially with Pisces in his seventh of others, people are going, oh, we kind of like the clouds are clearing again. He's not doing what we thought he'd do, and he's not who we thought he was. You know, podcasters like Joe Rogan have started, turning on him slightly. Some people are kind of going. I read that Megan, or heard that Megan Kelly is kind of turning again, but I still think the rot started. Some Gia Prism, she's a psychic here in Utah. She likened it to people leaving the cult of Mormonism. Did you hear her do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
She has been talking about this.
and I live in Utah, and she said bishops in the cult of the Mormon Church, because it is, um, literally tell people to put it on the shelf when they start to see, when they start to question things. And people keep putting it on the shelf, putting it on the shelf until the shelf collapses. And this is what's happening. Yeah, I
Right.
thought that was such a great analogy. So, yeah. So, yeah, this is, wow, quite amazing.
So I would
Yeah,
just stand back,
yeah.
take notes, and put your energy on what you want.
Oh, definitely,
Pay
because
attention to this, fight what you feel needs to be fought. There's a lot to
mm,
deal with, a lot of horrible things that he's still in a position to foist on us. But
yeah,
But as I said, I was talking with Annette Dion earlier this week, when in a pack, when an animal is wounded, that's the one everyone attacks. And
yeah,
he's now the wounded animal.
yeah,
Makes him more
definitely.
dangerous, but it
Yeah.
also makes him much more vulnerable.
Oh, it does. Yeah. And you know, I personally am going to keep trying to, because there's so many connections. I think we'll probably revisit it a little bit over the next few weeks, especially as we have Jupiter moving up to this Uranus, Epstein's Uranus, and Trump's Mercury Saturn midpoint. Midpoints, I don't look at them very often, but that one just leapt out at me. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that, and that's middle of August, as I said. So, you know, lots more to come on this. And oh, wow. Anything else you want to look at, or I think we've
No,
exhausted this?
all I want to say, it's Louise and I both have explanations of the Leo new moon, much more from a perspective of
Mm,
what you can do with it.
yeah,
And it's a sign of the like the inner child, playfulness. I
it
really
is.
encourage people to go figure out how you can go have some fun. Yes, all this
Hmm.
stuff is happening, but you need to refuel your spirit.
Oh,
Please do that. And you can watch this and go, I knew it. I knew it, and take guilty pleasure and maybe gloat, even though that's like spiritually not a good thing to do. But we've been through a lot. If you find yourself gloating, you're
it's
human.
a, it's okay to have a few moments of gloat.
Have some
Yeah.
moments of I knew it. And yes, we have seen him
Mm,
escape and escape and escape, but this
yes.
is not going away.
Away. And you know, but also I'm going to suggest, and I'm not suggesting you get sinking into it. Don't lose sight of what's happening behind him too, because you know
Mhm.
there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and still just do what you can, and as well as a lot of self-care, you know, calling your reps, calling this, calling that, making sure things are not left, because you know there's still, like, just here in Utah, one city south of Salt Lake City agreed to cooperate with ICE and things like that. So there's so much going on, and some of this is a distraction, but it is also what could take him down. So,
So with
mhm.
Uranus and Gemini, we have the opening here to look at life from several different perspectives
Yes,
simultaneously. Everything,
yes,
everywhere, all at once. I encourage you to let your mind go to the energy of the reality that you think is more positive and spend more time there than
yeah.
you are in what sometimes looks like a
Mm.
hellscape. Okay, I'll be honest. So, um,
And
focus more.
it's that mutable T-square energy for everybody, really, isn't it? It's kind of about changing your perspective on things, and only doing what you can, as well as taking care of your inner child.
But notice where your mind is going and spend more
Mm.
time on the vision of what you want
Hmm.
and less time on what you're angry about. I saw something,
Yeah,
I think, on Instagram of replace smashing the patriarchy with awakening the matriarchy. There's one for you.
I like that one. Yeah,
Mhm.
but then it makes me chuckle to wear a T-shirt that says petrify. Well, actually, it says petrify the patriarchy. And I have a thing on that saying it's not scaring the patriarchy, it's like turning it into petrified wood. And that brings me joy when I think of it that way. So that's about changing perspectives, right? As well. So I'm not hurting anybody. It's the system. We're going to turn that into a relic of the past and move forward and co-create a better world, right?
You're here. Yay.
I like playing on words. I've got my Gemini moon. So anyway, so for now, yeah, I'll put links below to check out my book and Kathy's website and everything. Kathy's got stuff on her website. We post it on both of ours. But otherwise, Jess, yeah, operate from joy, as a mutual friend of ours says. So see you next time.